Okay, here we go. So, in the chassidus learning, we've been focusing a lot on a pasuk from Shmuel Bet, Perek Zayin, and I think as we're kind of like finishing up with how he deals with this pasuk, it's good to just go back to Sefer Shmuel and look at it again. This is the Beis Yaakov, the second Rebbe of Ishbitz, and he's explaining this pasuk from Shmuel Bet, Perek Zayin. Right, this is this David HaMelech. David Melech sitting in his palace. Hashem has given him peace from all of the people around him. Navi, David Melech says to Nathan, I'm telling you in this beautiful palace, his home of cedar, while the ark of Hashem is in a tent. Nathan says to David HaMelech, whatever's in your heart to do, go and do because Hashem is with you. That same night, the word of Hashem came to Nathan. This very beautiful thing. We spoke a little bit about this outside last time, but I want to just show everybody inside. Lech ve'amarta lavdi David. It's an amazing thing that used to be if you were, I don't know if it happened, how much it happened to laymen, but at least with David HaMelech, I imagine even would happen once in a while with because there were so many Nevi'im. The Gemara says only 24 of them had Nevuah L'Doros, that their prophecy lasts for generations. But there were Kiflayim Yotze Mitzrayim, there was like millions of Nevi'im. And so you would daven and then you'd get a response. So that night, the Var Hashem was to Nasan saying, Lechem v'amarta alav di'al David komar Hashem ha'tativ nevli bait l'shivti. It's this very sweet, amazing thing. Are you the one to build a house for me to dwell in? Ki lo yashavti b'vayim yom alosis b'nei Yisrael Mitzrayim. I haven't sat in a house ever since I took Am Yisrael from Mitzrayim. V'yodem hazeh v'yem italech ba'ol mishkan. I'm going in an oil and in a mishkan. V'chol sheis halachti v'chol b'nei Yisrael davar dibarti asachachivtei Yisrael shetivisi the oz the Yisrael lemor lama levnisli beis harazim. I moved about wherever I went. Did I ever tell them, why haven't you built me a house? I never asked for it. V'ata kotamar lavdi David komar Hashem tzavakas ani lekachticha min hanave mecharatzon. I took you out from the pasture, from following the flock, and I made you a ruler, nagid liot nagid al mi al Yisrael v'yemcha, and I was with you. Everything you did, I destroyed all your enemies from before you. I give you a great name like all the great people in the world. Here's our pasuk. I will establish a home. See, this pasuk is a huge pasuk. It's talking about the Bais Rishon, but it's talking also about the Bais Shlishi. It's talking about in a very ultimate way. V'samti makom lami l'Yisrael in a tativ, v'shachein tachtav, v'lo yirgaz oid, v'lo yosifu v'nei avla nozga shabrishon. I will establish a home for my people Israel, plant them firm, so they shall dwell secure, and shall tremble no more. Right, so they translate shachein tachtav as dwell secure, right? And evil men will not oppress them anymore as in the past. Very, very powerful and strong pasuk. So we're just finishing up with that pasuk in this piece from the Heilig Ishbitzer. Hashem is going to load, okay.
Who's the piece from? What we're doing?
I had it all with the right. The Beis Yaakov, the Reb Yaakov Mishbitz, we've been learning. There we go. Baruch Hashem. Okay. So God, we're a little bit in the middle. I hope you got to hear the last shir. Hashem, you have to unmute because I don't hear you.
Yeah. So yeah, I heard the last year. where I have the Beis Yaakov. Where is the Beis Yaakov? Page 70,
It's
page
in
11.
Parshas Behar, Ois
Yeah.
Hey, a little ways in, maybe like a page in, depending on how your printing is. Here it's Dibur Maschil V'Shachin Tachtav.
So I guess I have version in yours because mine doesn't have the ice haze. I have a Beis Yaakov and Osesha together. Okay. Anyway, I'll look at your page.
Okay. So we got up to this amazing description. Olam Haba, kind of a description. In that great future will be this really awesome thing of really dwelling underneath ourselves in the depths of, like he said before, of the makom, of the real existential space that Hashem carves out for each one of us. And chayim, true chayim, that's not just responding to different things in life, but an inherent depth of life energy straight from Hashem. V'az lo yitztarchu lekabel. Where are we? All right, we did all of this yesterday. Thursday. This Hashem will open up for us in the future. Hashem is going to show each person mamish their place. Mamish their place. Each person needs to know who they are for Hashem. What's the particular kvod shemayim that my neshama is here for? What use do I have to Hashem? Incredible. We spoke about this a couple of years ago about how this is just something we have to daven so much about, and because you could spend your whole life like eating kosher food and davening 3 times a day, but to search for this, it's so deep. And we spoke about that in the context of free choice. Rav Nosson was bringing up free choice, that I think is, he doesn't mention it beferish, but I think it's very much here in the background, that if Hashem would just show me clearly, like we saw in the previous page, like if Hashem would show me clearly everything I'm here to do, so I might lose my free choice. I might just be, everything would be I would just be too much like a robot. Part of the depths of the dignity is that we discover who we are and come to terms with it and learn to live it. And this is something we're going to, spend the next few weeks on. We're still pretty much towards the beginning of this, so it's very long, so it's a few pages long. That there will be this revelation of who we are to Hashem. Like we said a couple of years ago, that the inyan of Shemitah and Yovel is a kind of a way for Hashem to shine that light, to be with us within the mystery. Just like Shabbos is this great light of truth. Like the Mishnah says in Masechet Dmai, that even an ignoramus who doesn't know Torah doesn't always have the most respect for Torah, but on Shabbos he will not lie. A certain emes shines through on Shabbos, so too with Shemitah. And we'll see about Yovel also. So a full revelation of that will be Zosiela Asid, but we can get glimmers of it through Shabbos, through Shemitah, through Yovel. That's a kind of way that the Torah is. And so, in a certain way, kind of parallel. Someone was asking me about Torah and capitalism. Is Torah capitalist? And that's very fascinating. He's going to speak now about kinyanim. That, yes, the Torah does not say a centralized government that apportions out the goods to everyone in like a communistic, socialistic kind of a way. There is a free market, and people can become wealthy, and the market itself breeds a certain, there are rules of competition in Masechet Bava Basra. There's certain rules of competition, but there is an understanding that competition will breed quality, and that the market itself has a way of balancing things out. However, the concept of shemittah, both in terms of what it does to the agricultural market, which at least in ancient times was like the main market that was out there, and also in terms of money, in terms of cancellation of loans, and the Yovel year, which even cancels out the sale of property, and everyone goes back to it. So there's a certain kind of a corrective energy. On the one hand, there is a free market, but it's not. It has a kind of something that keeps it in check also, that keeps us aware of the y-axis up to Shemayim within all the x-axis of business. So that kind of is also a parallel in a certain way. The capitalistic world, the business world, is kind of like the world of free choice, and the Shemitah and Yovel world are kind of like the energy of divine omniscience and sort of Hashem stepping in and taking over. And so there's a certain interplay between the two that's going on that's very important, and kind of has a tempering energy for society, I think. So, well, Yirgaz Od, right? The pasuk says it will not be in a state of roges. It will not be agitated, upset, stressed out. As we've been learning, in this world where life comes to us only from the outsides, from the sides, from the tzedadim, as he called it, the superficial way of how we respond to things that go on around us. How do I come to a place of peace? By adding, by growing my business, my estate, by adding. Hainu hispashtus bekinyanim. This is the spreading out of buying things, the way that my estate becomes bigger, that my nefesh becomes connected to more and more things in the world. Sh'adam konelo, that a person buys. Then therefore, but it also creates, on the other side of things, the people who you are buying from aren't always so happy about it. Very interesting discussions in the Gemara in Bava Basra about whether a person would sell anything. Like, we only sell because we feel we have to, we're sort of forced to. So the people who sell kind of wish they didn't have to. So there's this very, very interesting thing. Like, on the one hand, it's hard for me to find satisfaction without doing, growing, buying, expanding. On the other hand, there's this sense that maybe it ought to be that each one of us should just have what is truly theirs, and there shouldn't be any need for this masa umatan, for this back and forth. So this great future, when each person will sit and under their place, tachtav, as the pasuk says, when each person recognizes their place and the depths of their life, the inherent value of their life, V'chayim shalom lo yitztarech lezeh. They won't need that anymore. Azay v'lo yirgaz od. That's what it means. It won't be agitated anymore. There won't be like what they say today, the void, and I need to fill that void with something, with deals and buying and wheeling and dealing. Lo yirgaz od, shebenaicha, that will actually have real serenity. Umimela lo yasifu od ben avla noso kavarishona, and then automatically, as the end of that pasuk that we just looked at, Shmuel bet pasuk Zion, Perek Zion, that he keeps quoting and keeps coming back to. When we don't have that agitation, and we're just sitting in the place that is truly our own, that's going to have an effect, and such that no one is going to cause us suffering as they once did. That on just sitting and being in your own place, truly, that in that place there's no argument and there's no opposition. V'zeshen nemar bezu hasidra kisavo el haaretz. That's why it says in Parshas Bahar, when you will come to the land, asher ninosin lachem v'shavsa haaretz Shabbos l'Hashem, then the earth will have a Shabbos to Hashem. V'hainu shetavo el makomchem. Every shemittah contains this great serenity, this great sense of being in our place. Shekol ish yeda v'yakir makomo. Each person will be able to know and recognize their place. Ki be'eretz Yisrael benakel hu la'adam lahakiras hamakom haroi lo. Very amazing words. My wife and I at this moment are a little unclear on where we're supposed to be. But in any case, in Eretz Yisrael, it's easier to figure out and recognize the place that is really meant for me. V'sham lo nitzrach kol kach legedarim. And in that place, when I'm really in the place that's like meant for me, it's not going to be necessary for me to have gedarim. He means here like limitations. I won't need as many rules and regulations. I'm just in my place. Then it will be this aspect of the earth having a Shabbos. This means, and now here he has an amazing thing where he is translating the whole concept of shemittah into the individual. That the aretz, the Shabbos of the aretz, means peace in the heart. Mamish, it's so special. We're in Elul now. It's Mamish Erev Shabbos. It's Mamish Erev Shabbos this whole month. Mamish this month, when, as we've learned, when shemittah is deraisa, and when especially when there is a Beis HaMikdash standing, then we would have already had the laws of shemittah kick in from Rosh Chodesh Elul. It would have been Tosefet Shvis. It's like the 18 minutes that we add on to Shabbos. It would have been Halach al-Moshe Messina. So we're really holding Mamish in the sweetest Erev Shabbos time right now. And look how he says this. The aretz, that is the heart. V'shamayim hu neged hamoach. And the shamayim is the brain and the thoughts, v'hamachshava. Ukamo shehashamayim mashpia tal umata al haaretz. And just like the sky sends down, is mashpia, effects into the world, dew and rain, umatzmichim causes it to grow. Kmochin hamachshava, so too does what you think. The heart follows what you think. The heart trusts you, and that's why Like the Baal Shem Tov, famous Baal Shem Tov says, you are where your thoughts are. You are where your thoughts are. And such a deep, deep avodah to be able to think good thoughts. I'll just tell you one thing that has been helpful to me this Elul. We the other Thursday night we did a circle, and we went around saying how we're going to become more loving this Elul. Ani l'doidi v'doidi li. It's a month of love. And what hit me is there's an incredible Rambam. I urge you to see it inside. I'm not going to pull up on the screen right now. I don't want to get caught up in technicalities. But the Rambam in Hilchos Deos Perek Vav, Halacha Gimel, he says there's a mitzvah to love every Jew as yourself. V'aftecha kamocha, and says lefichach. Therefore, you need to speak the praises of your fellow Jew. Lefichach tzarich lesaper bishvacho. It's an amazing Rambam. For some reason, it's not so well known. And when I first saw it with a friend of mine in Montreal, we started like dancing on Shabbos lunch. We were blowing our mind. That compliments. That is literally what loving is. It's mamish an amazing Rambam. He goes on the Rambam say that therefore also you should care about his money as you would about your money, and not to insult him like you wouldn't want to insult him. But what's the positive? What does it mean to love? Mamish the Rambam is to give a compliment. And when I've just found in terms of this thing, having my thoughts put my heart in the right place, no one minds if you had to force yourself to compliment them. They'll still take it. No one minds. And if I take it as a disciplined thing, and I've done it, like I was in a very bad mood the other night, when it was late at night last night, we're driving back from Tzfas, I forced myself to compliment my wife, and it totally changed the energy. My heart wasn't there, but my mind went there. And then it affected her heart and my heart and my children's. It was an amazing thing. The thoughts lead the heart and grow within it. They grow the character traits in the heart. And how do you really start? Because on the one hand, right, in order to be able to have that good thought, you had to have some positive thing in your heart first. Also, it's kind of like a catch-22. Where really does it start? This is hidden from us. That it seems to us that we're starting from a good thought. But we also see that it's true that where your heart is at is going to affect what you're going to think. So, Gewalt. If the heart is happy, the mind also will think happy thoughts. And so too the opposite. Okay. So therefore, in the ultimate, deepest depths, it's because, like in my story, I had committed to compliment and try to do 5 a day. That's my goal. Be'ezus Hashem, of members of my family, 5 a day for Elul. Be'ezus Hashem. I don't know if I've made it every single day since then, but I'm trying. And well, the way we think, the way we experience it is when I think the thought, then my heart is affected by it. But the truth is, my ability to think that thought is because my heart decided to do it, and I have a caring that's underneath. It says ultimately, Vadai shaschalahu mehalev. And here's a bit of spelling. Edim. Edim means like the mists. The mist rise up because that's the hidden part of the cycle of water, right? What you see is the rain comes down. It's like the sky is doing it, but really, there's another side that the mists also go up. In a hidden way. Upol b'machshava, and they affect the heart. Kedis b'zer kodesh, on the pasuk ve'ed yalemina aretz. Umina machshava, let's do a couple more lines. We'll get into halacha. Machshava holeches Chazara tochalev. Then the rain goes back down into the heart of po'elbo. V'zen yergash heitev. And this is something that we experience well. And it's something that we experience acutely. Therefore, it seems like where does water go? It goes down. It comes down from the sky. We don't think about water going up and forming clouds. It's hidden. It's a hidden kind of a thing. It's also within us too. Okay, so let's just summarize here for now. Is that on Shemitah, the heart gets a Shabbos. On Shemitah, there is a very special serenity that the heart can have, and something for us to tune into personally on the Shemitah year. And this, I imagine, is true even for those of us Nebuch stuck in Chutz La'aretz, that when we can tune in to the Shemitah year, it's because it's happening here, it's happening also in Chutz La'aretz, we can connect to it. Halachically, there's no laws of letting the land fallow, etc. In Chutz La'aretz, we'll see later, there are laws about not bringing the fruits of Shemitah out of Eretz Yisrael. We'll get there probably next week. But he's saying here that the heart is called the Aretz, and that ultimately everything begins from the heart in a hidden way, and that there's a tremendous gift being given to us on Shemitah, that our hearts are going to find a kind of a serenity that we need so badly. We'll see tomorrow that he's now about to get into an understanding of. He spends a little like a quarter page over here about Beis Shammai and Beis Hillel, Shamayim and Aretz, which were created first, and how we perceive the two. A little bit more about the mind and the heart. But again, the idea here is that we're being given on the Shemitah year a taste of being at peace, of not needing the wheeling and dealing of business, of not needing to know who I am based on how I interact with things around me, of having a real inherent sense of my own life, of my own life energy from Hashem, of my own purpose in the world, even before Mashiach comes. Like one of my teachers says, I need a drink on my way to the bar. You know, I need a drink so badly. I can't wait till I get there. I need a drink on the way. That's before Hashem. We have Shemitah for Hashem. Okay. Any questions or thoughts before we move to the halachas?
Is that the year of Shemitah that comes before Yovel?
The year of Shemitah that comes before Yovel.
You get the drink on your way to the bar.
Yeah, Gavalt, yeah. Those are very special. 49 and 50. Mitzvah Hashem will experience it soon. Mitzvah Hashem. Okay, Gavalt. Now, I couldn't remember. Did we have a question that was unanswered from Thursday? I drove up to Tzfat and it was like a wild Shabbos. I came back late at night and I forgot it. Does anyone remember? Was there one? Or I'll just move forward.
I don't think so. I listened last night to the shir. I don't remember a question outstanding.
Okay, cool. Great. So let's continue here. We're holding now. In the halachas, I just lost my page over here. Okay. Weeding your garden. Okay. You have a little garden. This is like, for those of us who have a little garden, we're going to get to, before the end of the week, B'ezrat Hashem, what you have to do in terms of allowing other people into your garden if you have fruit trees growing there, vegetables, but fruit trees. But for now, Nikush up.
Are you there? I'm the host now.
Good. You're going to serve drinks?
What do you want?
Oh, what are you offering?
I got some good single malts I could share with you over here.
Some good what?
Single malt.
Oh, single malt. Wow. Oh, I haven't had single malt in a long time. Oh,
Really? You have to buy sometime.
sounds good. What's your address? I'll come over.
Where are you right now? Yerushalayim?
Yeah.
Yerushalayim?
Yeah.
Okay. I'm in Beit Shemesh, but your name is Natan Schaefer. I'm Gud Frankel. Nice to meet you.
Nice to meet you.
Yeah, I'm in Nachal Lav 11. So if you're in the neighborhood sometime, give me a ring first, and we can work something out.
Good. Okay. I'll let you know to, put the single malt in the fridge, cool it off.
Yeah, we like it room temperature.
Really? Oh my goodness. Oh, I had a chavrusa a few years back, and he would come over every week to learn together. And every time he came, he would bring a couple of bottles of beer, and he would say, "Chachamim tzrichim beer."
Yeah, single malts are Scotch, so that's why they're good at room temperature.
Oh, I see. Excuse me. Oh, that's right. Single malt is Scotch. Oh.
Yeah, it's very popular in America. Fortunately, it hasn't reached Israel as much as it will. So it looks like we've lost. What time is it? 3:30, 3:35.
He'll find his way back. He usually does.
Oh yeah.
Yeah, it's one of those computer things. He didn't go out to get a single malt. He's just a computer.
Yeah, no, I understand that. I was just thinking of maybe he can't pick up. Maybe we have to connect back up with him since he's the host. But we'll see if it's
in the past. He's found his way back to us.
Okay, great. So in that case, I will be very patient. There you go. Somebody's there.
Yay! Hey. Can't hear you.
He's not back, is he?
Unmute.
Here, sorry. Okay, here we go. Sorry. Yes, amazing. Okay, if you need to weed your garden on a shemittah year, so it depends. If the weeds are starving the other growing things in your garden, right? We spoke out last week that you're allowed to water a garden enough to keep it from dying or to keep it from having any damage. And in fact, the poskim urge that you set up a watering system so that you can know for sure that you're giving just the right amount and not more that would cause it to thrive. And it's good to consult with a gardener about how much that is. Depends on the type of earth. For grass, they have this whole chart in the sefer that I have here. The type of earth, the type of grass. It's funny, it took me a while to figure out what it said, and I say, Kentucky bluegrass. It's like all these names of things. It's unbelievable. So like so 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 now in terms of weeding, if the weeds that you have are going to cause damage to the other plants, then once again, like the same operating principle we have with all rabbinic prohibitions, right? Weeding is prohibited rabbinically, and so therefore, if it's going to cause the other plants to not, if you need to do it in order to not damage the other plants, because the weeds would steal all the water and starve out the other plants, then you're allowed to mamish weed in the normal way and mamish pull them out with the roots and everything. Okay, now they do say that it's better to spray the weeds so that they'll die. But if you can't do that, you're totally allowed to mamish weed them. And also, if those weeds are the type of weeds that animals would eat, then there's a problem with spraying them with pesticides, or not pesticides, with something that would kill them, because animal food is also part of the holiness of Shvis, right? The pasuk says specifically, we spoke with last time, the pasuk specifically that it's there for the animals and for the wild animals. Okay. However, if the weeding is purely for aesthetic purposes, not because the weeds are starving out the other plants. So now, what are you allowed to do? So you're allowed to put plastic over them so that they'll get withered out and die. And you also are allowed to cut the weeds in such a way that it's clear that you're not trying to make the other things grow better. For example, you just cut them, leaving like an inch or two above the ground. So you still get the benefit of them not taking up like tons of space and everything, but you can't pull them all the way out of the ground because, once again, weeding can do two things. Weeding can save the plants, and that's when we say you're allowed to do it, to save them from damage. But if it's not necessary for saving them from damage, you just want it for aesthetic purposes, then when you weed, what's going to happen? The other plants will grow better because the weeds aren't going to take the nutrients in the water, and so the other plants will grow better due to the fact that you weeded. So you can't mamish do regular weeding just for the sake of the aesthetics, because it's going to also have this secondary cause of making the other ones grow better. And so therefore, even though your kavana is not to make them grow better, but since you do it in a way that it will be clear to the onlooker that you're not going to make the other ones grow better because you didn't uproot them entirely, the roots are still there. So therefore, that's what you're allowed to do. Okay, so that's the difference between whether it's actually starving out the other plants or whether it's not starving them out, you just don't want them there for aesthetic purposes. If you have a little garden next to your house and you normally clean it from time to time, so then you're allowed to clean it out from fallen leaves, papers, whatever's gotten there, and you can clean it out. That's not a problem.
I'm not following.
Yeah.
It's the subtlety between the two,
Right.
between what's permitted and why it's permitted and what's not permitted and why it's not permitted. Somehow I'm not catching it.
Okay, so there's the question is, are the weeds causing a danger, or are they just annoying? If they're causing a danger to the other plants, you can uproot them with the roots and do a full weeding, right? If they're not causing any because then by uprooting them, what are you doing? You're preserving everything else, right? That you're allowed to do. You're allowed to do malachas derabanan, rabbinic prohibited labor on shmita. You're allowed to do leukme in order to preserve and stop damage from happening to the other plants. So usually the way we damage other plants is they'll take the water away. What's that?
Just rabbanans you can do if they damage other plants?
Right, yes. The Rai says you can't. You can't plow the earth, and you cannot prune, and you cannot plant, and you cannot harvest in a mass way, even if those not doing those things might cause some kind of damage. There's no leeway. But on the derabanan, such as watering, weeding, picking up rocks, tying a plank of wood to a tree that's starting to dangerously tilt, that might cause damage to the tree, those things, that's called leukme. That's what's mutter. La'avruye is this Lashon Aramaic word. La'avruye means from the word bari. You can't do things to cause the trees to thrive. What the rabbis forbade are things that will cause the trees to thrive. That's where they added to the deraisas, but they did not mean to add the prohibitions in such a way that will stop you from saving your trees or your plants. Okay, so therefore, like we said, the poskim actually what's the word? Encourage you to set up a water system to use on shmita, so that it will put in just the right amount that will preserve it. And they suggest speaking to a gardener about what that minimum amount is. And if there are weeds that will ruin that, because they'll drink up all the water, then you can weed, you can pull them out with their roots even on the Shemitah year. If the weeds are just annoying aesthetically, then you can't pull them up with their roots. You have to either cover them with plastic so that they'll wither away and die, or cut them but leaving an inch or two over the ground, right? Because weeding is forbidden midrabanan. You can't mamish pull them out. If it's just for the sake of, because you want it to look nicer, it's still usher. The only case that you're allowed to do it is because they're stealing the water from the other desired plants and going to cause damage. So, right? This clear now? It's good?
Getting there.
Getting there?
Starting to get there.
So you set up your whole water stand. You meet with the gardener. You say, how many liters per day, how many times per day, based on the kind of earth I have, the grass I have, the trees I have. What do you suggest? And he says, here, you're going to need this many hoses and whatever. And by the way, the poskim also even allow you to, it's better to put that in place before Shemitah, but you're even allowed to dig a little bit around in order to put those hoses that water your garden through the year. If it's clear that you're digging those little ditches like if you have those hoses with you and you're putting them in right as you do it, then anyone watching will see. They won't think that you are plowing, which you're not. You're just preparing a place to put those hoses that have that whole drip system or a sprinkler system, or however it is exactly that you're going to use. And you set it up and you figure out how much water you need, and you do as much weeding as you can before Shemitah. But then on Shemitah, pops into your garden all these like I don't know what, I don't even know names for weeds, but a whole bunch of weeds come in. And now it's going, if I keep my water rate at the same rate, the weeds are going to get all the water and my trees will die. So now I can uproot the weeds, the weeds with the roots. I can do a full regular weeding. Why? Because that weeding is saving everything, right? I'm weeding, it's rescue weeding, right? Whereas if everything is fine, the garden is growing fine, and the weeds are not stealing the water, they're an eyesore, I don't like them, then I can cut them, but not uproot them. Because uprooting them is the malacha of nichush, of weeding. Just cutting them when they're above the ground, that's not really mamish, a regular act of weeding. It's clear to anybody watching that what you're doing is not going to really improve any of the surrounding trees or bushes or flowers or whatever you have growing around there, because since you didn't uproot the roots are still going to be drinking and it's going to keep growing, right? So because it's going to be obvious to the onlooker, and your kavana is not to cause anything else to grow better because of this, and you won't be causing anything else to grow better because of this, so that's what you can do. You can cut off the parts that that are above the ground, but you leave an inch or two a little bit so that it stays alive.
This would seem to answer also a question that I had asked a short while back.
Right.
Plants that are growing or bushes that are growing where the branches of the bushes are interfering with people walking on the sidewalk.
Right.
And so if I'm hearing correctly, I shouldn't chop it off I shouldn't tear it out, but just cutting off a few inches or cutting off a branch is not a problem.
Right. Yeah. That we spoke about, right? That's because you do it in a non-professional kind of way. It's in a way that will not make it grow better, right? After that, because there's ways to cut off branches that's going to make the rest of it grow better. But we laymen, we're not going to know how to do that, so we don't have to even worry about it.
But when even though I, as a layman, don't know how to cut it to make it grow better, it's going to grow better anyhow.
It might. It might.
Cut it back.
But there's a whole chokhmah to making it grow better, and since you're just cutting in the place where there's an entrance, and anyone who watches sees that there was something that was obstructing, and you're only cutting there, right? So similarly, we spent the last time about cutting off branches to use as schach for your sukkah. If, for instance, they say, if you're going to do that, cut from just one side of the tree, because then it's really obvious that you're not trying to make the tree grow better. If you take all the branches from one side, it's obvious you're doing it because you want the branches, not because you're trying to improve the tree. So once again, things that improve the tree are a problem. Things that are for the sake of giving the tree, preventing the tree damage, are permissible when it's a rabbinic prohibition. When it's a deraisa, we don't allow you to do something even to save the tree. We'll allow you to do something to take wood because you need the wood for a completely different reason, such as building or for making schach or whatnot. But you can't do it in order to save the tree when it's a deraisa.
Does the garden have to be at a certain point of like near death in order to like weed, or is it just that you have the intention, like that you're trying to save them?
There's a lot. It's very, very good question. There's a lot of professional knowledge that the gardeners. It says in the book, in Hebrew it's called an agronome. I guess in English it's called an agronomist, it's important to speak to people who know about these things. Because some young trees, like it mentions in here, some young trees need quite a bit of water. Older trees, it depends. And I'm not an expert. I'm just giving you the halachic principles, but each tree is different. The age of the tree matters, the type of earth, the climate. And if you're on a hill, if you're in a valley where, in terms of how much rainwater will collect, the valleys, the rainwater collects there. And so the earth is more fecund. There's a lot of factors that go into this thing, actually. And the principle is, if what you're doing is preventing damage, then it's permissible. Someone cool. That's the principle. Is if you're preventing damage or preventing death of the tree or the plant, then it's permissible. If it's to cause it to thrive, then it's forbidden. So that's the general rule. But how that applies is going to be a whole story for each mamish, for each garden. I have this tiny garden in my house, and when the gardener came over, he was like, okay, how many hours of sun does this part get? And it's just like only like 2 meters by 2 meters, like a very tiny little garden. But less than that. It's like half a meter by 1.5 meters, like a very tiny garden. But he was still asking all kinds of questions and what type of earth they're going to put in, and et cetera, et cetera. There are a lot of factors, actually, the type of plant that you're growing and so on. And a lot of plants are pretty strong and pretty tough, and they can handle, not having too much water, and they don't need so much. At the end of the day, Hashem has a watering system, called rain and dew, and he takes care of, a lot of it really is taken care of, but some of it isn't, and that's why they say that it's good to have like I said, like a whole irrigation system set up, so you'll know how much is going in, and you can set it and have it be regulated every day. And there are known types of weeds that are bad in terms of drinking up all the water, other weeds less so. But again, this is all like, mamish, it's like being a doctor. It's like there's a whole chokhmah, there's a whole wisdom to it.
It sounds kind of like whatever state your garden is at, that's considered the place to go by, like it's relative, like whatever would improve it from that point would be
right. Oh, so you're saying, like, what happens if you started off with an already, that's right. I mean, I think that's right. You cannot do something to improve the garden on the Shemitah year, even if the garden isn't doing that great. That's an interesting thing. I haven't actually thought about that so much, but I'm pretty sure that that's true. That there's a status quo when you enter into Shemitah, and that's it. You can preserve that status quo. But we saw that also with the halacha about the tree that is starting to split. Remember this? If there's a tree that gets a crack in it, so you can tie around it, but not tie it tight enough that it'll close. You can tie it so that it won't keep on splitting, right? Because to tie it together that it'll close, that's causing it to thrive. But to prevent further damage, that's what you're allowed to do. So there's we love the trees and everything, but there's a certain, nature takes its course. If it's starting to split, you can't close it on the Shemitah year. You have to wait till after Shemitah. Okay, Gewalt. I think this is my computer time is a little off. Where we hold? Is it 10 to 5? Is it 10 to 4 already? Another couple
4 to
minutes.
4 to 4.
Okay. Okay, fine, great.
Thank you.
Yes, pleasure, Chevra. Thank you so much for coming. See you in Hashem tomorrow in the wonderful world of Shemitah.